Today, I'll challenge one of the biggest misconceptions in business, that innovation comes from lone geniuses and dramatic breakthroughs. Using three company examples, Wave, Google, and Monumental, I'll show you how innovation in the real world is far less cinematic, but far more powerful. Most of us grow up with the belief that behind every major innovation, there's some heroic moment of discovery, a flash of brilliance that changes everything. It's a compelling story, and it makes great movies. But in the corporate world, this idea can mislead leaders, distort strategy, and cause teams to chase big ideas rather than build the capabilities that actually create breakthroughs. Today, I want to reframe how we think about innovation by closely looking at three real companies whose stories show a very different, more realistic, and much more actionable picture. Hi, I'm Ariane M, and I'm presenting to you today. We tend to believe innovation is about sudden inspiration, but in organizations, innovation is slow, collective, and systematic. Companies don't win because someone wakes up with $1 billion idea. They win because teams execute, iterate, and persist. We've all heard people say things like, "We just need the right idea," as if ideas are the scarce resource. But in mature organizations, ideas are usually abundant. That's scarce. What's scarce is the ability to continuously test them, refine them, and shepherd them through all of the operational and organizational friction. Real innovation looks much more like project management, coordination, resilience, and learning than magical thinking. And once you understand this, the path to building an innovative organization becomes far clearer. We glorify stories like Fleming discovering penicillin by accident or Kukle dreaming about the structure of benzene. These stories reinforce the false idea that all innovation comes from brilliant individuals and sudden insight. But inside firms, this myth can be damaging. It encourages leaders to hunt for silver bullets instead of building innovation systems. What Hollywood doesn't show is the years of failed experiments, the endless trial and error, and the teams of people involved in every major discovery. The lone genius narrative appeals to our desire for simple stories, but it conditions organizations to wait for inspiration rather than create environments where iteration and learning can happen at scale. And worst of all, it leads to unrealistic expectations. Leaders want big leaps, not the small, necessary steps that make big leaps possible. The reality of corporate innovation. In reality, innovation takes years of disciplined work. It requires cross-functional teams, strong feedback loops, and relentless iteration. Breakthroughs that are not moments, they are outcomes of processes. In companies, innovation has to pass through organizational structures, technical limitations, legal reviews, customer adoption barriers, market timing, and dozens of interdependencies that no individual can control alone. Innovation becomes less about genius and more about reducing friction, enabling teams to run experiments, fail safely, gather data, and quickly incorporate what they learn. When these mechanisms are strong, innovation becomes a repeatable capability instead of a lucky accident. Innovation is a grind. Wave is a great example. When the founders proposed a learning-based, self-driving model, the industry was skeptical. For 8 years, they refined the technology, tested it in difficult real-world conditions, and continued improving. Only recently did they sign a major partnership with Nissan. Their story proves that what looks like an overnight success is almost always a long grind. What I love about Wave's story is how countercultural it was at the beginning. The dominant approach in autonomous vehicles relied on writing explicit rules, rule books for how cars should respond to every scenario. Wave bet on a data-driven approach years before the industry embraced it, which meant they spent nearly a decade collecting data, improving models, retraining systems, and deploying on real streets where things go wrong constantly. Their eventful partnership with Nissan didn't come from a sudden insight. It emerged from an accumulation of evidence that their method worked. As Wave's co-founder says directly, the biggest lie in innovation is the myth of the eureka moment. Their success wasn't a single insight. It was showing up every day, day after day, improving models, gathering data, and testing in the real world. This quote is really powerful because it destroys the fantasy that innovation is about exceptional individuals. What Wave demonstrates is the value of iteration over imagination. Insight can spark direction, but it's repetition that builds capability. It's a reminder for every company, if you want breakthroughs, build teams who can run thousands of experiments. No one person trying to think their way to genius. Google's culture reinforces this idea. Many of their most successful features didn't work the first time. The company succeeded because it tried, failed, learned, and retired, sometimes over many years. Their innovation engine is built on persistence, not brilliance alone. Google has the resources to try things repeatedly, which means they don't get discouraged when ideas fail the first time. In fact, failure is often expected. The company emphasizes iteration over perfection, which creates psychological safety for teams to experiment without fear. Many of the company's most iconic products, search improvements, Gmail features, map tools, were the result of revisiting ideas that didn't gain traction initially, but succeeded once the ecosystem matured. One great example is Google Maps, restaurant reviews. The idea existed early on, but adoption was low because users had to remember to leave a review. Only after location tracking and notifications matured did the feature finally take off. The takeaway, the right idea isn't enough. You need the right timing and infrastructure. This example illustrates something critical. Even great ideas fail when the surrounding tools and technology aren't ready. Most innovation failures aren't about the quality of the idea. They're about timing, context, and execution. Google didn't discard the idea. They waited until they had the infrastructure to make reviewing effortless. Once the supporting systems existed, adoption surged. This reinforces an important principle. Innovation is ecological, not individual. Monumental, the robotic bricklaying startup. Monumental demonstrates another side of innovation, the importance of continuous real-world feedback. Their robots operate on messy, unpredictable job sites, and the team documents every friction or failure. Engineers use this feedback to refine the system daily. This is innovation as a learning loop. Construction sites change every day. Weather changes, material shift, surfaces are uneven. Monumental's robots don't succeed because the engineers engineered the perfect system from the beginning. They succeed because they treat every deployment of a source as a source of new information. They keep friction logs, documenting every obstacle, every unexpected behavior, every inconsistency. It's the discipline of learning, not the brilliance of the initial idea, that drives progress. Across all three cases, innovation comes from structured grind work, friction logs, field data, iteration, and incremental problem solving. The breakthroughs that get headlines are just the visible tip of the years of invisible work. That invisible work includes debugging, rewriting code, redesigning hardware, testing in real-world conditions, coordinating across teams, revisiting assumptions, and staying committed even when the results are low. If you add it all up, innovation is not magic. It's momentum. It's the compound interest of small improvements accumulated over time. So the true story of innovation isn't about a lone genius. It's about teams, persistence, and systems. Companies that understand this build the capabilities to innovate repeatedly, not by waiting for inspiration, but by engineering progress through disciplined, long-term effort. If we want our own organizations to innovate like these companies do, we have to shift our expectations. Instead of asking, who has the big idea? We should ask, do we have the systems, the culture, and the patience to execute the small steps that make big ideas real? Innovation isn't an event, it's practice. It's a practice. And once you view it that way, you can build organizations capable of sustained, meaningful progress. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.